So first of all, I just want to tell you this is a title slide, and what it tells us is that on each of the plant slides, there will be those little images that you find across the bottom of the screen, because I'm not going to repeat all of that for information for every plant. Um, when the little hummingbird appears, it means it's a great hummingbird nectar plant. Butterfly means it's a great butterfly nectar plant. The little caterpillar means that it's a butterfly host plant, butterfly and moth host plant. The little bee means it's a great pollinator plant for bees and other insects. Um, and the bird, the little white-throated sparrow, means that it has berries or seeds for birds. So let me see if the clicker works that I have. It does. So first thing I want to say is that we live in the Northeast forest biome. Our part of the world is meant to be covered with trees. So most of our native plants are meant to grow in the shade of trees, interestingly enough. They have at least a 10,000-year-old history of growing in shade. That's since the last ice age. So they grow together and they grow in shade very well. So I've a very large selection of plants to choose from, actually. And I'm going to show you just a few today, which I like, which I think are very good garden plants, and many of which I've grown myself. So this is a picture, I want you to see this photograph, of a healthy woodland. It has layers is the important word here, the operative word here. It isn't just one layer of something, just the canopy trees and nothing else on the ground. It has mature canopy trees, young trees, it has understory trees, it has shrubs, and it has a ground layer of spring ephemerals and perennials. So that's a healthy forest, and we can layer our gardens like this too. Shade plants for all seasons. There are shade plants that have great interest for all seasons. On the left, spring ephemerals, wild blue phlox, and yellow lady slipper orchids for the spring. Summer blooming rhododendrons for the summer. Fothergilla fall foliage for the fall. Many of the native plants we have that grow in shade also have really good fall foliage in shade or part shade. And then evergreens in winter. Kinds of shade. I find this very helpful. When judging shade for trees and as we grow plants and as we find out what they like, the number of hours of sun is not the only thing to think about and not the only thing to understand. There are all kinds of shade, and there is part shade, which is illustrated by this mist flower in the upper left. Minimum 4 hours of sun. There is spring sun before the trees leaf out. This would be the Virginia bluebells. They bloom, they're a spring blooming ephemeral. They bloom in April, and then there's a phone here, I hope you can't hear it. The Virginia bluebells bloom in April, and then before the trees leaf. And then they die into the ground, and they are in shade for the rest of the year. There's rhododendron maximum, spring sun on a south-facing woodland edge. I really like this idea. I have a south-facing woodland edge at home, and it's really great. You know, the sun is very low in the sky in the south in the spring, and it gets very high in June, high summer, and will be directly overhead. So many plants on that north border of mine get only spring sun, even after the trees leaf, but they still get sun coming at a low angle in. And then high summer, that sun is right overhead, and they are in full shade, which they like very much. They like the coolness of the shade in the summer. Then there is dappled sun all day. A good example of that is the rhododendron blooming under a tree in the bottom right. But getting dappled sun all day you get quite a bit of sun. Many of the plants will be labeled 2 hours of sun, and what they want is just 2 hours of direct sun, and then dappled sun would be great, or dappled sun all day would please them with nothing else. So many plants will grow. That rhododendron is growing in dappled shade, and you can see it's blooming profusely. So it's getting plenty of light. Moisture and soil. Uh, Shade plants like a woodland soil. They like lots of composted plant matter. Now, in a natural woodland, or if you have a little woodland, or a lot of an area that is under trees and gets all the leaves from the trees that decompose and make a wonderful soft layer of soil, that's great. We can also add compost, which I do a lot in my gardens, especially when I'm planting something in. I'll add a third compost to whatever I'm planting in. They like it evenly moist. In other words, that doesn't mean they have to be wet all the time. They don't want to be wet all the time. It means they don't want a hot, dry summer sun midday with the soil um, drying out completely over several days or time. So definitely water in droughts and keep them happy with a soil that has moisture in it. Some even like it wet. Some ground covers will grow in dry shade. There are always exceptions to whatever you say about nature. So there are some that will grow in dry shade. I'll mention a couple. Some even like it wet, inundated with water in spring, and then just normal soil the rest of the year. They prefer an acidic soil. That doesn't mean it's very acid. 6.5 to 6.8, a little bit on the acidic side, suits most of our native plants. And that's a very healthy soil for this kind of area. Concrete foundations can be a problem. Just a little note, they don't like an alkaline soil. So you can check the soil pH. If you can get a little meter, it's easy to do. If you're having any issues with a plant, if it doesn't seem happy, that could be one of the reasons. But most of our soils are still a good enough, are well enough on the acid side to please most native plants. So I'm going to start showing you plants and talking about their aid to the environment, and also how to grow them best. Shrubs are first, then I'm going to do ground covers, perennials, and a few small understory trees. Rhododendrons and azaleas. These are the classic Northeast woodland plants. Moist organic soil. They prefer cooler conditions, and that is very good. Especially they want shade in when the summer gets hot, midsummer. So it's very good to have that south-facing woodland edge, or to have a half a day sun with the shady part of the day in the afternoon when it gets hot, the sun gets hot. The upper left is Rochelle azalea. When you see the little DL on any of the slides, that means that it's a photograph from my garden. So that's it blooming in late May. It is a very easy plant to grow in the right soil. I put it back on the north where it gets lots of leaves and lots of compost. And so it has been there for several years. It's 6 to 8 feet, and it loves summer shade. It gets spring sun from the low spring sun, and then it goes into full shade in the summer. Flame azalea, rhododendron calendulaceum, 6 to 8 feet. It takes spring sun and summer shade again. Anything that blooms early, like April or May, will often not need shade, will often need sun rather during the summer. Will be very happy in full shade most of the summer. Catawba rhododendron, Borsalt is one that I chose. That's from my garden. Again, spring sun, summer shade. Rosebud rhododendron, rhododendron maximum, part sun to full shade. That will live in the middle of a woodland where it gets either dappled shade or no sun at all. Smooth hydrangea. I love hydrangeas. I have grown a lot of hydrangeas. They're very long blooming, and that's why I like them. They're one thing that will bloom into the heat of summer, but they do not generally want direct sun in that heat of summer. They bloom on new wood, another wonderful thing about them, so that if we get a late spring frost, they will bloom anyway because they create their buds in the spring. There are two kinds of flowers on them, mophead and lacecap. The mopheads are illustrated with those pink hydrangeas I'm showing there, just big, beautiful mophead blooms. And the lacecaps have fertile flowers in the center of the flower. You can see that best in the lower right. That is a species, the species Hydrangea arborescens. Those are sterile flowers in the center, not very showy. And a few of the, I'm sorry, those are fertile flowers in the center. They have lots of nectar in them, and only a few sterile flowers around the edges. Not a showy plant, but it's lovely for a shady border or a shady woodland, inside a shady woodland. I learned something about hydrangeas a couple of years ago, 3 years ago, I think it's been, at Mount Cuba Center. You can find them online. You can just look that up. They're on your resource list, which you'll be getting emailed actually after the presentation. I learned that the hydrangeas in my yard, which were all mopheads, I believe, except for the one species that I was growing. The species hydrangea had all kinds of bees on it. The mopheads, many of them didn't have any pollinators on them. And I found a wonderful study at Mount Cuba Center that grew, I think maybe 30 or 40 varieties of our native hydrangeas, and tested out how they grew, how to grow them, how much light they needed, how well they did, how virile they were, and also how many pollinators visited them. Now, the native hydrangea, the species, Hydrangea arborescens, the species, had the most of any hydrangea. The next most, excuse me, next to that was the Hydrangea arborescens Haas halo in upper left. I bought some of those, and I'm growing 3 or 4 of them now. They are absolutely beautiful, and there are pollinators all over them. I found that the dark pink hydrangea here has practically no pollinators on it, and that bore out in the Mount Cuba study. And the light pink, the arborescens Invincible Spirit 2, it had the most pollinators of any mophead. So if we want pollinators, we also need to think not just big, beautiful blooms, but what is going to have fertile flowers so that they will produce nectar. There is one non-native on this slide. I have very few non-natives in this presentation, but I have one here. Hydrangea serrata blue billow, not a native. It's a lace cap, and it has lots of pollinators on it. Grows in quite a bit of shade. That's the beauty of that. The pink hydrangeas tend to want maybe half a day sun, but maybe definitely afternoon shade in the hot weather. And that hydrangea, the white ones, can live all in, they don't need as much sun as the pink ones. They like to live in shade. The serrata blue billow will live in shade, and it's living in shade in my house. So sorry to do so much on hydrangeas, but they're wonderful flowers. I think a lot of us grow them. And I had to tell you about Mount Cuba, which they also have done studies of other plants, other native plants. So it's great website to go to. Oak leaf. Hydrangea quercifolia. It's another kind of native hydrangea, another species. That's it in the corner of my woodland in full shade. Uh, and it gets those white flowers early in the season, and then they turn rosy pink in the summer. And this, the cultivars of this tend to be very good, but check it out. But they tend to have fertile flowers tucked in between all those very showy flowers. Spice bush and benzoin. I have this growing on my back border. That's it growing on my back border, actually. It's growing very well in full shade. It gets the tiniest bit. That's a south-facing edge there, forest edge. I just have some big tall trees above. So they get spring sun and then nothing else after that, just full shade the rest of the time. It's way back in the border. They make lovely flowers in the spring, but the thing I like most about them, I want to tell you, is that they are shade plants that host butterflies. It's not just sun plants that will host butterflies. They host the spice bush swallowtail butterfly that's on the lower right. And I have that butterfly in my yard. I'm sure due to the spice bush. Hulbabush viburnum lanthanoides. These plants are growing in a woodland in the midst of a shady woodland. They will take full shade. This I would consider full shade. There is a little bit of dappled sun when I was going through that day, but they're making all these berries. There's a row in a woodland path there that is maybe 20 feet, 30 feet long, and these are growing all along it in perfect health. The other thing that I like about this particular viburnum is that viburnums can get viburnum leaf beetle, and they can be a lot of difficulty. I had them at home with another kind of viburnum, and I couldn't handle them. I've taken them out. I really want to try this hobblebush. There were some viburnums nearby, maple leaves, that were covered with problems from the beetle, but these had no damage at all. So they're really a good viburnum that is very resistant to that issue, and they will grow healthily in full shade. They are also, all viburnums are a host for the spring azure and the clearwing hummingbird moth. Summer sweet clethra. This is a smaller shrub. Many of our shrubs are 6-8 feet tall. This is 4 to 5 feet. The cultivar is hummingbird, which I really like. That's a smaller version of the shrub. Wonderful hummingbird nectar flowers in the summer, in July, and good fall foliage, yellow foliage in the fall. It forms colonies, by the way. I grew this at a preserve, and it would sucker a little bit. It was outside of a perennial garden, and it would sucker into the perennial garden. So finally, I let it sucker in a little bit and cover a little bit of corner of that perennial garden. So it will make a small colony for you. Juneberry, Amelanchier canadensis, wonderful June berries and spring bloom, beautiful spring bloom. I'm always delighted. Mine bloomed, I think, about a week ago. It was in bloom, and it's a delight in the spring to welcome it. And then to get those bright red June berries, and mine is getting, I would say, 2 hours shade, 2 hours sun rather. It gets actually morning shade and then afternoon sun, a little bit of afternoon sun. It is host to the tiger swallowtail. Black elderberry, Savucus canadensis. Very fast growing. Berries for jam, although I never get them, the birds get them. That on the lower one on the lower right, I'm sorry, is growing in part shade next to my vegetable garden. American hazelnut, Carlos americana, um, nuts for squirrels, woodpeckers, and other wildlife. Beautiful fall foliage. Mine is in, I would call full shade, and maybe a little bit of sun, dappled sun occasionally. And it is growing in health and vigor and is robust, makes wonderful hazelnuts, and makes a very beautiful fall foliage. Inkberry holly, Ilex glabra. This is an evergreen for shade. Will grow down to in almost total shade. So, it will not make as many berries in total shade. It will also take full sun, and it will get lots of berries in full sun. It is dioecious, just something to mention in your notes. You need a male and female. Buy a male and female if you want berries. Sweet shrub, Pelicanthus floridus. This is a plant that you want to put very close to you. You want to sit in a bench underneath it or next to it, because those very beautiful flowers you won't see from a distance. If you're 20 feet away, you won't notice them, but close up, they're absolutely beautiful. Blooms in May, and it is a very old plant in the growth of plants on Earth. It's beetle pollinated. It's a magnolia relative, and its plant family started before there were bees on Earth. And so beetles pollinated this plant. In the magnolia family, there are quite a few plants in that family that are pollinated, not by bees, but by beetles. Northern bush honeysuckle. This is a wonderful little plant. It makes a good ground cover, 2 to 3 feet high only. It makes thickets and hedgerows by spreading rhizomes. It's not invasive, but it makes a wonderful thicket. And if you go on the internet, you'll see photos of wonderful thickets of this. It likes sun to part shade. It wants at least 4 hours of sun. Yellow root. I think of this plant, and I really like it. It's mine at home down there on the lower left. I think of this plant as sort of something that romps through the woodlands here and there. And it's a weed suppressing ground cover. It's a wonderful celery color. So it really lights up a woodland. And it makes seeds for birds. Ground covers. Don't we all want ground covers? This is my favorite garden and my favorite ground covers, actually. This is Virginia bluebells, Hortensia virginica, in a little hill behind my house. They bloom in April into May a little bit. And they're absolutely gorgeous. If you can put it, the big picture here is with sun behind it. If you can place it where the sun will get behind it at some point, those little flowers glow like a stained glass window. It's good to plant with lady fern. So this blooms for quite a while, maybe a month or so, in April and into May a little. And then one day it'll, begin to fade a bit. And then I'll look at it a few days later and it will be gone and the ferns will be coming up. So really good to interplant that way. It's what you do is you plant this, I think it's 12-inch centers, and then you plant the ferns on 12-inch centers too, but between the Virginia bluebells. And then you will have a ground cover of ferns for the rest of the summer. Maidenhair fern, Adiantum pedatum. It looks very delicate, but it's not. It's very hardy. It's very tough. Part sun to full shade. Comes up through leaf litter. Now, the thing about ferns is that some years ago, I was in a garden club, and we were asked by someone that was taking care of a public garden, public fern garden, to clean it up because he couldn't get to cleaning it up that spring. So we very carefully went over, we cleaned the paths, did a beautiful job of that. We cleaned the leaves off, all the leaf litter off of the ferns that were coming up then. And then reported to him the wonderful job that we had done. And he said, well, you didn't need to do that. They come up through the litter. You don't want to do anything. So in my woodland and in any fern garden, you don't need to do anything. You just let the ferns come up through the litter. This is the lady fern. This is the fern that is really great to plant between the Virginia bluebells. Sensitive fern. These are all very common ferns. They're not special ferns. There's a book, I think, Nickel, it's in your resource list, which will tell you about many, many more ferns, both native and not. But these are just very simple, hardy, easy to grow native ferns. I like Anaclea because it has this wonderful texture that makes a textural contrast anywhere you put it. It grows in full shade. It will also grow in full sun. I've seen it at a friend's house in full sun. It is called sensitive because it is the first fern to die back in the fall when was the first frost. Christmas fern. Picture on the right is from my garden. It's coming up among the rocks in that back woodland garden of mine. And it is just a very lustrous, it's not delicate. It's very, very thick fern that will grow parts into full shade. It's not really evergreen here, though. Ostrich fern, Matutia strutheropteris. This fern makes a hedge. It's tall. It's 30 to 36 inches tall. Sun to shade. It's large, very vigorous ground cover. It's very easy. The croziers in the spring, I will mention, as it's in John Mickel's book, are really very delicious. They taste like asparagus, either in salads or cooked like asparagus. When he says that, I think he means they're really very good. I haven't tried them, but I don't think they're one of those natives that you can barely tolerate. I think they really are good, but I've never tasted mine. But they come up every year very reliably, cover the ground, and they do spread at a reasonable rate, so you can keep them where you want to keep them. My neighbor in the back is not a gardener. She has maybe 30 feet of these ferns, and they've gotten to be maybe 6 feet wide now. They come up every year into her backyard in full sun, no watering, no nothing. And they are there every single year. And they spread very slowly they're making a hedge for her. Canada ginger. This is not the European ginger. This is Canada ginger, and it is an alternate host for the pipevine swallowtail butterfly, which is shown here. So if we want pipevine swallowtail butterflies, we need to grow this ginger. It suppresses weeds. It takes a little while to catch on, but once it catches on, it makes a great ground cover. It can interplant with other things. It interplants with some selenine poppies that I got, and I'll show you a picture of that. And it is also a plant that is pollinated, and seeds are spread, not pollinated, but seeds are spread by ants. Seeds have lyosomes in them, which means that they have food in them. So the ants come for the food, eat the food, move the seed, and spread the little ginger plant. Wild blue phlox, Phlox divaricata. I like to grow, these are all from my garden and back. This is Phlox divaricata Blue Moon. It's just a favorite cultivar of mine. Part sun to full shade. There's a cultivar Louisiana Blue. I haven't tried it yet, so I should really take it off of there, but I want to try that. It's one that Cuba grows. It's just a beautiful spring plant that is great for butterflies in April and May. Sedges, carex. Sedges are the grasses for shade areas, the way I think of them. They're ground covers for shade that host butterflies. They're ground covers for shade that host dun skippers and Appalachian brown butterflies. To find the best varieties, there's so many species of these that grow in varying conditions, many of them full shade, some of them part shade, dry, fairly dry to generally evenly moist. Go to Prairie Nursery, North Creek, Mount Cuba Center for sedge articles. They show many sedges and have many ideas to show you which cultivar or which species you might like. And that is in the resource list. All those things are in the resource list. So choose a sedge. They're great ground covers. Sometimes they look delicate on the top side, but the roots of them are very, very, shall I say, they cover the ground and they do keep weeds out. Golden groundsel. Okay, dare I recommend this? It's called Packera aurea. It was previously called Senecio aureus. The two pictures are from my gardens. I planted 6 of them. And I think it's about 4 years later, I have a whole little meadow of them. The lower right is a meadow from a professional garden. Lovely plant, 4 to 6 inches high, part sun to full shade. Doesn't care. It will even grow in full sun, mostly full sun. Dense, very dense, keeps weeds out. It is aggressive. Be careful. Do not put this to interplant with your garden flowers. I have mine in an area in the front yard where there's a mowed path between it and other areas, and actually lawn. So it's very easy to keep it because I can just mow along the edge and keep it under control. But it's a great native, beautiful little meadow thing, looking like thing that blooms in May. And then it makes seed heads, which are very fluffy, which the birds like to use for their nests. Foam flower, Tiarella cordifolia, May, June blooms. Very low maintenance, dry shade. That's the key to this plant. You can grow it under trees where other things will not grow because they have surface roots. Good plant for pollinators. Meehan's mint. This should be an easy plant to grow. I have a groundhog, and I think he ate all of the ones that I planted last year. But mints are very easy. 3 to 6 inches, makes them deep, suppresses weeds, and has spectacular bloom. Labrador violet and common blue violet, well, violets in general. If you want to host, if you want great spangled fritillaries in your yard, if you want that caterpillar to be able to, that butterfly to be able to complete its life cycle and live, you need to grow violets. There are many species of violets, of native violets. Some of them are white, some of them are pinkish, many of them are blue. Labrador violet is a cultivar, is a species, a native species that likes down to 2 hours of sun. It's the only host. Violets are the only host for fritillary butterflies. I tried Labrador violet. I've heard that it can do very well, but that it depends upon whether it likes the situation. I don't think it liked my situation. It lasted for a while, but didn't last forever. So I grow the easy one. I grow common blue violet, Violet ceroria. I don't grow it among other perennials. It's a bit aggressive, but it's lovely. And I now have a whole patch of it underneath shrubs as a wonderful ground cover. So I'm very happy with my Viola ceroria. I grow it here and there. It's not actually in the gardens. Pachysandra procumbens. This is not a non-native Pachysandra. It's a wonderful ground cover that I like because it is a slow spreader and it covers the ground with this incredibly beautiful texture. I've never seen flowers on mine. It gets a little spring sun and then shade the rest of the year. It will grow in lots of shade. It'll grow in full shade. It will spread slowly, maybe a little out from its patch each year. And it's just an easy grower that keeps the weeds out. Large white trillium, grandiflorum. I've never grown this. I saw it in on a construction site that was down the road and across from my house. One day in the spring, in May, I had gone up there to sort of investigate. There was a little woodland next to it, and it was growing like this. It is vigorous and easy and grows in up to full shade. Mayapple, I've always wanted to grow a hillside of this, and I have a hillside for it, which is covered in non-native things, which I won't mention. But Mayapple, Podophyllum peltatum, is a very vigorous, reliable plant. Will cover a woodside, a hillside, and a woodland. This must be early season because you see things between it. It actually covers over the whole woodland and will grow in full shade. It makes Mayapples, little apple-like fruits that are relished by box turtles. And it's very tough once it's established. It's actually interplanted. I don't know how it came up that way at a place that I know that is interplanted with the Pachysandra, the non-native Pachysandra, which is a really invasive plant, but this overtakes it in spring and makes a beautiful show. Pachysandra comes up midsummer, so it's a very tough plant. Perennials. First of spring, welcome to spring. Perennial, sanguinaria, bloodroot. Lovely little plant. Blooms in April and has leaves that are in good condition, stay in good condition in a woodland planting, a mixed woodland planting all summer. It is pollinated by ants. Wood poppy. I grow quite a bit of this now. Styloforum diphyllum. There's a non-native wood poppy also called Styloforum diphyllum. Look for these leaves. Look for these beautiful lobular leaves. The non-native does not have as good of a flower. The flowers don't last as long. The leaves are not as lacy and beautiful. This is a great plant. It blooms May, June, and then it dies back and to a basal leaf, and you can just cut it back to those basal leaves. But I grow this. This is interplanted with the ginger, the native ginger. And so the native ginger grows underneath this. When it's blooming, comes up in the spring, blooms, makes a beautiful little hedgerow. It spreads, it pops around, it seeds around a bit. So it's made a beautiful hedge. It is popping into other places here and there. And so I keep it where I want to keep it. Easy to grow, absolutely gorgeous. And then when it dies back, I cut it back and the ginger is there. Good combination. It also makes seeds that chipmunks love. Jacob's ladder. I have this for the first time this year. I've seen it growing in another garden that I kept, and it would come back in full sun every year. every single year. Never moved, never got bigger, never got smaller. Very reliable, absolutely beautiful in April and May. Long-lived, reliable. I now have it growing, and it bloomed beautifully this spring in spring sun and summer shade. So, you know, good nectar plant, good seed plant. The foliage, which I should be showing here, take a look on the internet, is really lacy, provides a really lovely contrast. Wild geranium, interesting. I have a couple plants of this that I planted a very long time ago. I've been in my house 20 years, so maybe they've been there maybe 15 years. It's way up on top of the hill, underneath a yew, partly underneath a yew. It might get a tad of spring sun, but not much. Will go to full shade, I can guarantee that. I keep thinking it's gonna go away. It doesn't go away. It's been there forever. And every year it comes up. It's not really spreading, but it comes up every year and makes a beautiful little display in May and June. Reliable woodlander. Blue Star, Amsonia tabernae montana. This wants full sun to maybe 3 hours of sun. There is the species, the regular version of it, which grows to 3 feet. I grow it between daffodils, non-native daffodils, and they bloom beautifully. I have a row of them, a whole hedge of them. And then when they die back, they can make a terrible mess. This plant is big enough, strong enough to interplant with them. And they are now dying back between this. And there is no problem. They cover the daffodils rather nicely when they're dying back. This plant is like a hedge. It's a big, robust, long-lived, and reliable plant. It takes a while to start up. So I buy it in the Hort gallon size. I bought it when I planted it in several years ago in the Hort gallon size pot. So it had a head start. But once it starts, it grows beautifully, blooms in May. If you have a heavy rain, it falls over. And then it comes right back up by itself the next day. It's just an incredible thing. It will last longer than I do, I'm sure. There is a shorter version, 12 to 18 inches, which I grow also at another location, which is called Blue Ice. Goat's beard, another plant for shade, a big plant for shade, 3 to 5 feet. Dappled shade preferred. It likes a little bit of sunlight. Slow to establish, another one of those, but long-lived. It's dioecious, so if you want fruit, you need both a male and a female. You want seeds, but you can grow either one. Both kinds of flowers are showy. I don't know which I have. I have 2 of them, and I now absolutely enjoy them in June, late-ish June. Stokes aster. I think this is probably the showiest perennial that I have. Sun to 2 hours of sun. I grow it in part sun. And I think I grow it in where it gets a little bit too much afternoon sun, but at any rate, I water it well and it does fine. But it also came up on its own, another part of the garden, which doesn't get more than 2 hours sun. It's very shady back there. And it does very well back there also. Flowers very well back there. It's a great pollinator plant. The bees are all over it. And I wanted to tell you one other thing. Oh, that when it finishes blooming, it's good to cut it back to a new bud, or you can cut it back to the basal growth for the rest of the season. Black snake root. I have 2 of these that I planted ages ago and kind of neglected the area. And they're coming up beautifully and blooming this year. It's kind of like a fairyland plant for a woodland with those tall spikes. Evenly moist, part sun to full shade, very reliable. I haven't really tended to it for a long time, and it's doing very well. It is also host for the spring azure butterflies and the hair streak butterfly. Blue-stemmed goldenrod, Solidago Kesia. This is a goldenrod for shade. Interplant with whitewood aster, and you've got a wonderful ground cover. Blooms as goldenrods do in August, September, along with the aster. Host for the orange sulfur. Mist flower, Eupatorium calastinum. Obviously one of my favorite plants. You can grow it in full sun. It will also grow in part sun. These are all the pollinators on it, my place that I photographed. It's a pollinator magnet. It comes up late in the spring, so if you put it in a garden with other things, take care of that little area that it's in, and keep it weeded until it comes up. It comes up a little bit late. Blooms late summer, August and September into September. It also will spread. It spreads by little rootlets, and it might spread 4 inches beyond its border, beyond the outer edges of it, in a season. So when it gets too close to the others, I just pull it up around. Unlike many plants, it's very easy to pull up. It is little roots. They don't stick in the ground. It's just really a clean little yank, and it's out wherever you don't want it. Northern sea oats, a very, very vigorous but shady grass. This I know will grow in shade. They say it grows in shade, and it's growing in shade. I healed it in the corner of my vegetable garden, which is full shade and not very good for vegetables. And 3 years later, it's very happy there. It will seed around, and you need to either scrape those seeds off or pull them up. But that is easy to control. It likes a sizable kind of place to grow, though. I mean, to grow one of these in the middle of delicate perennials would not be a good idea. But grasses, the airy, feathery flowers, are a great foil visually for other flowers. And grasses are meant to make seeds for birds, and this does exactly that. It's a host for the pepper and salt skipper. Mountain mint, a very vigorous plant, spreads by roots that I absolutely love. It blooms late summer. Those are bracts, so they last for months, over a month, months, I don't know, a long time. They're not flower petals, they're bracts. It's a pollinator bee magnet. These are pictures from my yard. It will grow, it loves full sun to part shade. I like it actually in part shade a little bit because 4 hours of sun, minimum, because it does spread by rhizomes. It spreads a little less in shade than it does in sun. And you do need to control this. It may want a large area. You may have to cut the rhizomes in the spring around the outside of it to keep it where you want it. But it's an absolutely incredible pollinator plant.
Donna, you have about 10 minutes.
Okay, thank you. So I've got trees to go, and I'll do this very quickly now. I'm going to take a sip of water though. Okay, whitewood aster. This is the plant we interplanted with goldenrod, and this is an unstoppable shady ground cover. Wonderful thing to grow with that. Host for butterflies. Pokeweed, a weed. It can seed around. It's gorgeous if you've got the room for it. I just let it pop up where I can keep it in out of the way areas. It's absolutely beautiful in the fall and makes wonderful berries for birds. The birds are all over it in the fall. A couple vines and then a couple trees, and we're done. I'll do this real quick. Dutchman's pipe. It's a host for the pipevine swallowtail, and it makes those lovely, great big heart-shaped flowers. Those are the flowers that you see, the little pipe vines, the little pipes. And it's a twining plant, so grow it on the back of a wire fence, and you can walk around in the back of the garden and you'll see them. They're behind the leaves. It's host for the pipevine swallowtail. Now there is a story about Crooknut Hudson, where I live, that we used to have lots of pipevine swallowtails back in the days when people sat on their porches. And so I would suggest that we start growing this again, the vine, on our porches or other places, any place that you can give it something to twine on, and we will have pipevine swallowtail butterflies again. Virgin's Bower, July plus a long season repeat of bloom, sun to part sun. Virginia creeper, this is a wild vine. You have to be careful with it. It's very vigorous. Great fall foliage. The first red leaves that come out in the fall. It can go up trees though, and it gets into the upper part of the tree, crown. It can kill the trees. So, but I love it. I love vines going up trees, and so I let it grow up the tree on the trunk until it gets up fairly high, and then one year in the fall, or during the winter, actually, I go and just cut the vine at waist height and then cut it again a little higher, and that kills the vine of the upper tree, and it just starts growing up the tree again. Understory trees, there are just a few of these. Eastern redbud. I saw this at the Met Museum, didn't have any idea what it was when I lived in New York City. And I don't grow it now, but it grows in full sun. It'll grow to mostly shade. It's a lovely spring nectar plant for bees, host for Henry's elfin. American hornbeam. The tree on the left is making that beautiful fall foliage in full shade. Well, it might be dappled at certain times of year. It's in the middle of a forest. Full sun to full shade, April, May. Host for tiger swallowtail butterfly. Great fall foliage, even in shade. Pagoda dogwood. This is a plant that it makes layers like a pagoda, and it's a very, very beautiful dogwood plant. Dogwoods are host for spring azures, great flowers, full sun to 2 hours of sun. Now, 2 hours of sun is not going to make flowers like that. That would be at least part shade there. White fringe tree. I wish this is growing in sun, I have to say, and full of pollinators, but it's a fine plant for 2 hours. It's down to 2 hours sun. It would not going to get any flowers like that. It would be healthy. I would grow it in 4 hours of sun. Great fall foliage, berries for birds, an incredible pollinator plant. Black haw viburnum. This is another viburnum that is resistant to black vine beetle. Host for the hummingbird clearwing moth and the spring azure butterfly. Berries for birds, flowers for pollinators. American holly, a huge plant, big plant. It's going to get 15 to 30 feet to even 40 feet. Sun or part shade. The one you look at there that has all those berries grows in part shade. It's afternoon sun. Host for the striped hair streak. Carolina silver bell. This is a plant that you cannot resist. It's really easy to grow. It seeds around. It's a tree, 20 to 35 feet eventually. Great, beautiful bell-shaped flowers to welcome spring. And it's just easy and reliable. Host for Promethea moth. Pawpaw, we can grow pawpaws here. They are native here, interestingly. Blooms in May, sun to 2 hour sun. This is another one of those magnolia family plants that supports beetles. Birds, squirrels, and others relish the fallen fruit in August and September. Good fall foliage too. Okay, now I just want to show you some gardens, and then we'll be finishing up. These are some spring gardens, just to show you what blooms in spring. Tiarella, rhododendron, wild oak phlox, lady slippers, and azaleas. Summer gardens, fern gardens. lady ferns, hay-scented ferns, Christmas ferns, orchid ferns, ostrich ferns. Summer gardens, oak leaf hydrangea, rosemary rhododendron, summer sweet plethora, blue stem goldenrod, whitewood aster. Fall foliage. No dearth of fall foliage with native plants, even in shady locations. My gardens at home, very quickly, just the shade gardens. That's at North Woodland, my favorite garden of all. I mean, every spring, this is really, really happy thing that happens. North Woodland Garden in summer textures with lady fern, hay-scented fern, and oriental hellebore. I do grow some not natives. The hellebores are beautiful too. Upper yard in spring with woodland phlox, celandine poppies, lily flower tulips, and comfrey. Now, comfrey is a non-native again, but it's a wonderful nectar plant. And my upper yard in summer. Now, this is where the hydrangeas come in that I really love, that they can take shade plants through summer. These are growing in part shade. Smooth hydrangea, Stokes aster, bee balm, oak leaf hydrangea. Fall in the back. And this is near my house, up the road from my house. That's the Hudson there, a little view of the Hudson.